going to do now is to move to a model that is more realistic, in part because it's going to allow us to think about not just two goods, but many, many goods. Yeah? But maybe before that, I'll give you sort of a few seconds to just relax a bit. Yeah?
Really? Can you just finish it with too much information? Yeah. The slides are so long. I know. It was so quick. So very quick.
So we're meant to finish at 5:2.
5 more minutes?
Marking, but then if you have anything in the macro, I was marking the chess, the January chess, and the traumatic experience that had never happened to me. So someone got 100%.
Wow.
I have never, in all these years of teaching, never given 100% in anything. So I'm not quite sure what to do now, how to react. You don't need to get those tests. So you always pretend there was a mistake. But yeah, last year I think some people got 94%, but 100% is unheard of. So anyway, I'm still recovering from that trauma. Okay, so let's carry on. So what we're going to do now is, by the way, don't tell this to the second years because they're still not. They're unaware that I've nearly finished marking their tests. So before we look at the model with many, many goods, we're going to have to think a little bit more about specialization and what happens to relative wages. So to go back to what we've been doing, so prices reflect marginal costs, and the marginal cost is just the wage you pay times the number of people needed to produce one unit, or times the number of hours needed to produce one unit of good. In the first case, the wage would be wage paid per worker, and the second would be wage paid per hour. Yeah. So the interpretation that is sort of immaterial. But this wage is going to be the economy's national wage. So prices after break will still reflect marginal costs and average costs. So in a perfectly competitive economy, there will be zero economic profit, so prices will reflect costs because we assume constant returns to scale with only one factor. Marginal and average are exactly the same. And as I told you, this is sort of this sentence here, and as I told you, prices will, of the two goods, will typically reflect costs, and so every time the wage increases in the economy, the prices will have to follow. Yeah? So once you have completely specialized, and so in this case, remember, France produces food, nice cheese and wine and meat, whatever, and the UK produces cloth. Then once you have completely specialized, then the wage in the two economies will obviously also have changed, because the wage, as you saw, reflects productivity as well as the prices of the two goods. So complete specialization requires a higher wage in cloth, requires that home is able to produce at a lower cost, at a lower price. But that, as you can see, requires its relative wage to be lower than its relative productivity. And so we can yet again use another letter to denote a relative variable. We're going to use this omega t, and omega t is going to be the relative wage in the home economy. Yeah? So this is the wage that workers get at home relative to the wage they're getting at, in foreign. Yeah? So that home's relative wage is going to have to be lower than home's relative productivity in cloth. Okay, I'll repeat this because this is important. It's also it's going to shed a lot of light to why is it that some countries such as China have managed in the last 20 or 30 years to become exporters of ever more products. So it may well be that you have a disadvantage, an absolute disadvantage in producing the two goods. But if you're going to end up, as in this case, by specialising in seed, in cloth, it must be because you're able to produce that stuff at a lower price. But if you're able to produce that stuff at a lower price, it must be because the wage your workers are being paid relative to the wage the other guys foreign are being paid is actually lower than your relative productivity of cloth. And so if you want, look at this. This is the key condition. Why has the UK specialised in cloth? Because even though its relative productivity is lower than than in foreign, its relative wage is going to be even lower than that. And that is going to then feed it to lower prices. Yeah? So I might need twice as many workers as in France to produce 1 unit of seed. But if my workers are only being paid 30% of what the French workers are being paid, then the price and the cost is actually going to be lower in the UK than it is in France. Yeah? Okay, we need to call to that. So I'll continue.